This is a Parks Canada production. Ce balado est aussi disponible en français.
In general, I've always loved wildlife and have always valued working in mountain national parks where so many of the native species exist and the functioning ecosystems are in place. But I also, love puzzles and I like to figure out cause and effect. So that's where the science came into it.
That's Anne Forshner, a Parks Canada wildlife ecologist, talking about what inspired her career. Anne studies a lot of different animals, but one of them is so rare and elusive that even she hasn't seen it in person. The wolverine. Today's episode is all about these legendary mammals. Welcome back to Connected, a Parks Canada podcast. Settle in to learn about backcountry travel, smelly bait traps, remote cameras, and everything else it takes to do wolverine research in the Canadian Rockies.
My name's Anne Forshner, and I am a wildlife ecologist for species at risk and species of concern in the Banff, Yoho, and Kootenay National Parks.
What first got you interested in studying and working with wolverines?
They were listed as special concern under the Federal Species at Risk Act, which means that we need more information to ensure that they not become endangered or threatened. So this was kind of the impetus for my work and diving into some of the research that I and others have done. Their populations are known to be decreasing in the southern portion of their range. In Alberta and BC, we also know that some of their habitat has been fragmented, particularly in the south. We say they have low reproductive rates, which means they do not have very many babies. They don't have them very often. And they're quite sensitive to human disturbance. So they avoid areas with numbers of people. And then they require these vast, secure areas to maintain viable populations. So those 5 factors are why they were originally listed as special concern.
It's pretty common for species at risk to face multiple threats and have certain characteristics, like low reproductive rates, that make recovery efforts more challenging. The elusive nature of wolverines also begs the question: how do you study an animal that you never see?
I have never seen a wolverine in person, so that makes it doubly interesting. But there's so many unique techniques that we can use now to study wildlife in a really non-invasive way that we never actually do need to see them. We can learn a lot about them through remote camera images and through DNA from their hair that they've left in various places. One of the things that we're doing is collecting information on where important habitats are for wolverine. So we have what we call non-invasive research sites, and they're spread across our entire study area to put one site roughly per home range. And we visit these research sites once a month from January to May.
To protect the wildlife in the national parks, take responsibility for your own food and garbage. Wildlife may eat garbage and then seek out other sources of human food. Ensure all garbage, recycling, and food waste, even organic waste like banana peels and apple cores, are disposed of in a wildlife-proof garbage bin. Never on the ground, in a fire pit, or in the bed of your truck. Your actions matter. When you leave a national park, leave it wild. Learn more at parkscanada.ca/wildlife rules.
Last year, I accompanied Anne on a trip to one of these research sites. What really struck me was the structure that collects hair samples and poses the wolverine for a photo. Here's David Laskin, another Parks Canada wildlife ecologist, describing it.
It's a simple frame made out of 2x4s that extend off a tree with a cable overhead with bait hanging off of it. Wolverine will run up the run pole, and it's designed that it kind of has to do a gymnastics to go the route we want it to. And then at the end, there's all these alligator clips that are poised and open. When the wolverine brushes past them, the alligator clips have little mouthfuls of air. Then it poses at the end. There's a camera directly across on an adjacent tree that gets a good picture of its chest blaze.
The information collected at research sites doesn't just tell us that a wolverine was there. It tells us which wolverine. We send the hair-caught in alligator clips to a laboratory where DNA is extracted and used to identify individuals. And we analyze the photos of the chest blaze, the pattern and color of fur on the chest. Every chest blaze is unique, so it's like the Wolverine version of a fingerprint. But in order to collect hair samples and photos, first we need to convince wolverines to visit the research sites. And what do you use for bait?
It can be a variety of different things. We use animals that have died on the highway or on the railway. We'll use portions of those animals, like bones. And we also use lure. It's a very powerful scent, one drop on your coat, and you'll be living with that probably for the next week or 2 weeks until you can wash it off.
Oh no. Is there anything you would liken it to that it smells like?
Some people are repelled and others are very much attracted to the scent. So to me, it smells a lot like in between a skunk and marijuana, to be honest. It has its own name. It's called gusto, which makes it even more interesting. Gusto for Wolverine.
This popular scent really does make the research sites attractive. One of the top destinations or best places to visit if you're a wolverine in the mountains. In exchange, Parks Canada is learning a lot about wolverines. We're exploring questions like how much space do wolverines need, and are roads a barrier to movement?
Previous research did show that wolverine males were able to cross Trans-Canada Highway, but the wolverine females didn't seem to be doing that as much. So I'm really interested in following up on that work to see if we've got more evidence now of wolverine females crossing the Trans-Canada Highway in areas that are prime wolverine habitat. Are they able to use those new crossing structures? We also want to know if connectivity is maintained throughout the parks, Banff, Yellow, and Kootenay, but also adjacent to the parks because wolverine have such large home ranges.
Mm-hmm. And Anne, just how big are those home ranges?
They are massive. They're similar to wolves. They can be between 500 to 1,500 kilometers squared.
To put that in perspective, one of the largest ski resorts in North America, Whistler Blackcomb, has about 33 square kilometers of terrain. So a small wolverine home range of 500 square kilometers is about the same size as 15 ski resorts. These animals need a lot of space to go about their daily lives.
We would go on backcountry trips where we would travel from work cabin to work cabin to set up the different research sites. Some of them are 500 meters away from a road or a trail, where others were up to 25 kilometers.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes it's really easy to travel because you're only breaking through a couple of centimeters of snow. Other times you're breaking through beyond your knees. The temperature can be anywhere from minus 35 to plus 5. So the conditions can change all throughout the winter.
Other challenges of wolverine research are a result of how rare the animals are. For example, Anne has been contributing to wolverine surveys that found, back in 2011, an estimated 34 wolverines in Banff, Yoho, and Kootenay National Parks. That's a population density of 3.6 wolverines per 1,000 kilometers squared, which, for context, is much less than Calgary's population density of over 290,000 people per 1,000 kilometers squared. So these animals are extremely rare. In 2020, that estimated number dropped from 34 to 20 wolverines, of which there were only 13 females that could have babies and keep the population going. For a deeper dive into this research, check out the show notes where there's a link to a scientific paper published in Nature Scientific Reports.
To get a bigger picture of wolverine, it takes a lot of collaboration among a lot of people to collect data from huge areas so that you can say some things about, are wolverine connected across this valley? Do they use these kinds of important habitats? Mm-hmm. I coordinate and collaborate with other folks that are doing research work to provide peer-reviewed data that can be used to make decisions. This can vary from different universities that have graduate students that are working on projects to contract work.
Shout out here to Miriam Barrueto and the University of Calgary, who have been collaborating with Parks Canada for several years now on wolverine research projects.
Most recently, I've been working with a group coordinated through Yellowstone to Yukon, and various professionals gather in the spring and in the fall to discuss what's known about wolverine, what new research has uncovered, and research needs that are still to come.
In terms of how the public might feed into that as well, Anne, are there real and meaningful ways that the public could help wolverines and contribute to their conservation?
I think one of the main ways is reporting sightings of wolverine, and particularly if people are out and they see what they think might be a wolverine den. We don't know where many of these places are because the species is so elusive.
Yeah.
I've never actually seen a wolverine den, and so I'm learning how to find them myself. There are good photos on the internet that show the holes that people will see in the snow, and they'll be accompanied by hopefully recent tracks.
That's cool. I'm going to Google that.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are probably the two biggest things that people can do right now to help, because all those sightings and particularly the den locations, they add to the picture of where important habitats are for wolverine, and they'll help us with the protection recovery in the future.
If you're lucky enough to see a wolverine or find a den in the parks, please report that information. The easiest way to do this is by stopping at a Parks Canada Visitor Centre and talking to the staff. It's always exciting for us to hear about wolverines, and people like Anne really appreciate your help. Is there one thing you really wish people knew or understood about wolverines?
They are quite sensitive to human use, so they are sensitive to disturbance, more so than any of the other carnivores that I study, like grizzly bears or wolves. It's going to take some initiative and work to live together with these animals, because they do need really big areas of secure habitat to go about their lives.
How well do you know your relatives? Our ancestry can be traced back to diverse creatures that swam the oceans 500 million years ago, way older than dinosaurs. This summer, discover the incredible Burgess Shale fossils in a safe, fun, group environment and marvel at how well preserved they are. Parks Canada offers guided hikes to 3 unique fossil sites. Visit parkscanada.ca/Burgess Shale and book your next adventure.